So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Taylor Carden. Personally, I'm excited to be speaking with you today. We'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. So if you have a question, please feel free to send it through the Q&A channel at the bottom of your player. We'll be answering your questions at the end of today's session or during our live demo. Today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session and is accessible by registering on the XIQ website. Lastly, we'd encourage you to share this webinar on your social networks. So welcome to our webinar. And I want to start by kind of contextualizing why we put this webinar together and everything that's important in the B2B sales today. We know that AI is reshaping the way we connect and adapt as a society. Gone are the days of the simple face-to-face interactions we were all used to. And now every human connection incorporates technology, fostering those meaningful relationships. Just think about it. We all sit in these little Zoom boxes today. As we navigate through this evolving landscape, it is crucial to recognize that attention is now just as valuable as currency and time. So joining us today as we explore the fascinating world of AI-driven communication and the importance of capturing and maintaining attention in this rapidly evolving digital era is Brian Picard.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, Brian. So Brian Picard has been a dedicated member of Dell Technologies for nearly 17 years. He presently enjoys the privilege of collaborating with service sales representatives, spanning from inside teams to field teams, and even principal consultants. His primary mission revolves around the adoption of tools and processes that are aimed at enhancing their efficiencies, simplifying their daily tasks, and driving those sales. Over the past 6 months, AI has emerged as a significant component of his daily responsibilities. Brian is enthused to share his insights on AI and shed light on how XIQ is transforming AI into an accessible and immediate value resource for all those skeptics out there. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Usman Sheikh, a familiar face for some. He is the founder and CEO of XIQ. Prior to founding XIQ, Usman served in several vice president roles with global responsibility at SAP, including sales enablement and digital commerce. He's a regular lecturer at leading US business schools on how AI is transforming B2B sales. Welcome and good morning, Usman.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone.
So I want to start off this conversation with really laying some groundwork before we jump into the platform. I know we have some people who have maybe used XIQ for a few years, have been with us since the beginning, and maybe some people who are just coming to this webinar and don't really even know who we are. So Usman, what is XIQ? What is the core of XIQ? And the question we all want to know, what does it stand for? What is the X and what is the IQ?
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. And so I get asked that question a lot, why XIQ? So X, we use that as a multiplication symbol. So it's the X. It's also the X factor. Let's put it straight out there. And for IQ, it's about intelligence. And where does this name come from? The name comes from my having worked with some of the best salespeople in the world. And what I observed in terms of their best practices was that the best top salespeople who are always making that President's Club consistently every year are the ones that have supreme knowledge about their customers, as well as about the industry that they're dealing in. So they're very, very uniquely plugged into what's happening at a personal level, at a business level, at an industry level. And it's that intelligence that they're gathering that gives them that added advantage. However, these top salespeople constitute about less than 5% of the total sales population in a company. And so the idea came about in terms of how do we democratize these best practices, the knowledge and the experience that these top 5% have, how do we bring it to the next 95%? And that's where X, the multiplication factor of the IQ of the top 5% came out. And what we've endeavored to do is we've built an AI-based platform, a generative AI platform. And Taylor and Brian, I'll say this to the audience, that we are one of the first people to introduce generative AI to the world of B2B sales and marketing. Back in 2018, we created the generative AI-based DISC personality prediction tool. And so here we were able to collect information from all over the internet, analyze it, and predict the behavioral mindset of your prospective buyers, and use that as a cornerstone for building a whole platform which allowed you to personalize every step of the engagement with your clients and prospects. And we're going to talk about it. And Brian, you've been a great champion of this at Dell and an avid user. And we're really, really looking forward to you showing us those X factors that XIQ helps bring about. And also the emotional side of, the personality insights that we can couple together with the intelligence side to have that X level of, performance that our users are used to.
I'm excited. It's a great tool.
And Brian, we've created the platform, but we drink our own champagne, but we want to hear how you are really utilizing the platform. So I know we gave you a quick introduction, but you're very passionate about AI. Anyone who's seen his LinkedIn blogs know that he spends, I'm surprised it's not all of your day, researching how you can use it and how you can use it as a best practice in teaching your team. But can you tell us a little bit more about your role and your passion of AI in B2B sales? And then we can start jumping into actually how you're utilizing it in the platform.
Sure. Thank you so much. Honored to be here, Usman and Taylor. Thank you for the opportunity. XIQ for me and AI in general is just it's a passion project. And I have the benefit of working in an operations organization at Dell Technologies for services sellers. And my key role as a longtime salesperson and a sales leader is to go help enable tools and processes that I say it all the time. And I think maybe I caught it maybe from you, Usman. It removes the drudgery from their jobs. And whether that's AI or other tools previously, I've made a career out of helping develop strategies with tools and enable those so that reps can be more successful, touch more accounts and touch more accounts with more value, which is at the end of the day what it is with B2B sales. Touch more accounts and touch with a high value. And when XIQ came about, it opened up a whole nother world, right? So there are a lot of things that Usman talked about, we're going to get into. It's a small percentage of people who have the analytic skills to create all the SWOT analysis and do all the work. And so for once, we've now leveled the playing field where I can take a brand new sales rep or a seasoned veteran sales rep, and this tool alone can apply a lot of value to them, as well as make it easier for them to go touch more accounts. So I'm kind of excited to walk you through some of those strategies today.
Well, I'm excited to walk through them as well. So let's walk over to the XIQ account strategy slide. And on that, we're going to be highlighting the pieces that Brian is going to be walking through. And then we'll have him share his screen, and he's going to walk through those pieces and how he really utilizes it as an end user, as a customer of XIQ.
Thank you. So I think most people are going to see the top section here of SWOT analysis and people analysis, and that's going to make sense on some level. When you see it in the tool, I'm going to blow your mind with it. I think we all at some level in B2B sales have had to go look at pain points and aggregate a bunch of data and financials and try to figure out how am I going to go develop a plan to be successful with this customer long-term. And then the big part of that is understanding people. Well, some people like me, and we were talking about this earlier, it's like I've made a career out of being able to step into a room and read a room while I'm giving a presentation and change it. Well, you guys have made it where I don't even have to do that. But because of my experience, I can leverage that on top of the people analysis that you've made very simple. I think the two bottom ones are going to be where we may get some new creative juices flowing for people. I think when you hear content creation, you think graphic design people or influencer on Instagram. But we're going to show you a real practical way to create some content and use it over and over in a variety of ways that's probably unique and a lot of your other counterparts aren't doing. And one of those is a social selling aspect. So we're going to leverage the content that we can create, not only for social selling, but how can we go do some personal touches and get really creative in how we approach potential clients or different people and accounts that we may already be very successful in. So I'm excited to kind of walk you through the circle. And I think you'll find that it doesn't matter where you start And within one of these strategies, they all tie together very beautifully, depend on where you are in your career or where you are with that specific account.
And Brian, is this the process that you're utilizing at Dell? Is this how you explain to your colleagues what XIQ or AI can actually help do for them?
This is a great baseline for that. And so it allows us to develop one of these strategies. And I think I've shared this with you guys as well. We talk a lot about at Dell with the onset of AI, we're trying to teach reps how to communicate with large language models and AI so that it's agnostic to whatever tool is around from an AI perspective. And doing that, we tend to preach capabilities versus prescriptive actions. And that why, to me, utilizing this method where there's 4 strategies right here and allows the rep to use which one makes the most sense to them is the right approach with AI. AI is very personal, right? And some people have great fears about it. Some people like me are super excited about it. And there's a whole wide variety in between. And I think you guys have done a great job of making it accessible at many different levels, whether it's just starting to use curated AI information or it's you jumping in and getting Gilroy to go join your efforts of creating great content and emails and what have you, and anywhere in between that. So that is the approach we take.
I think the thing that really, when we were prepping for this, the thing that really resonated is when you said that, teach capabilities and don't prescribe activities. Sales rep to sales rep, we have so many things to do and we're so busy. If you give us a list of 3 things, we're going to get through 2 and maybe have to push off the 3rd. So it's really playing to the strengths and weaknesses of the individuals on your team and then empowering them with the tools they need in the way they want to use it.
And the situations vary. You may be in an enterprise account patch, and so you speak at a very high level and you bring in a lot of other resources potentially, or you may be an acquisition sales rep. And so you touch a lot more accounts and you've got to be really good at creating initial value, or maybe you have a medium business set of type of accounts. And so you have lots and lots of accounts. And so for you, it's utilizing the tools to touch more accounts. That's what we say about capabilities. Let you go figure out what works in your patch with your set of accounts in your neck of the woods and with your products. And that's not just Dell, that should be any customer that's out there using XIQ. It's got enough information and enough ways to approach it and use it that it allows us to be very flexible within our different sales organizations. Just within services, we have that type of variety of account sets and account representatives. And so having a tool, and I use this phrase all the time, I'm an old chefy guy, so Elton Brown from my cooking shows, he had a theory of you can't have unitaskers in the kitchen. And I feel adamantly about that way as we try to add tools to our sales reps days, is no unitaskers. And XIQ is not that. It actually incorporates Gilroy, which gets rid of needing to go to ChatGPT for a vast majority of things. It incorporates this personality information, which I would spend hours trying to go collect from CRMs and what have you. It pulls in and curates all the information from the web that you guys do a great job of, that allows me then to go scour one page instead of 550, or figure out how to Google appropriately to even get that information. And so it just does all these great things that, whether it's really high level AI or I'm using the AI stuff that you guys have curated, you've made it very accessible for every individual. And I think that's why for me and at Dell, I was drawn in instantly. And then once I got to become friends with Gilroy, he and I are besties now. Like I know how he thinks and he knows how I think. And I hope that's the journey everybody takes. Is spend enough time with Gilroy, he becomes your best friend. So are you ready to come in and let's start playing? Let me share some screen and let's talk about strategies. Because that's what everybody's here for. That's the good stuff, right?
We share a common passion, which is another common passion, which is cooking. So
yes,
I think we need to get together one of these days and do that in person.
I'll share you one of my my meal prep prompts I've written. How about that? We'll tie AI right back into food.
And I'll have Gilroy cook it over here in my kitchen.
I'm in. Taylor, you want to come along? I don't know. You maybe make a drink.
Maybe. I'm not a very good cook, but I am good with XIQ, and so I just want to preference what Brian is pulling up. So this is our browser version of XIQ, and I want to point out that it's Brian's version of XIQ. So he's already preloaded some of his accounts, and you can start looking up people, companies, industries, but he's going to start with that company. So Brian, tell us how you go about your XIQ sales strategy.
So I was thinking about this from a strategy perspective of, Boeing is a huge company. We all know Boeing. It's probably an account that I'm not trying to get into. Let's pretend I'm already the account representative for this customer, but I'm trying to find a way to go dig deeper, right? We refer to a term sometimes, land and expand, right? I already have this customer, I've landed, we have a great relationship, but now how do I expand into this customer and find other areas that we can be a great partner and provide solutions for them? And so this tool allows that. So whether I'm a seasoned sales rep in this account or I'm trying to dig into this account, it's a great tool that allows me some of that leverage. And one of the things I always talk about first is this SWOT analysis. So you can see the button up here and then the sales trigger button up here. I'm going to scroll down to those sections because I already have them kind of expanded. And for those of you that have been around a while in sales, you know, or you probably have at one point in time had to create a SWOT analysis. And it's an arduous task for even the most analytical of people. What XIQ has done is curated all this information from financials, public domain information that, you know, sites can't share because they're new sites and they have access to, and pulls it all into this beautiful place. And I can go and read through this. And quite honestly, 6 months ago, we had reps utilizing this to go leverage it and then try to map this manually to our thousands of different service offerings, which, as you can imagine, is time consuming. And you look at these beautiful pain points and you do the same thing. What could I go build a strategy around to deepen my relationship with Boeing? It takes some effort to go and dig through this. Way better than not having it. But what really has set the world on fire is now leveraging Gilroy and his abilities to go take this information and take what it knows about my company or my offerings and actually narrow it down and give me a much better starting point. So I'm going to jump in here to my chat box with Mr. Gilroy. And you can see it automatically loads with a series of pre-formatted prompts. And this is side note. One of the other reasons I really loved what XIQ is doing is I am a prompt engineer. I've invested a lot of time trying to develop prompts that work and try to figure out how to communicate with AI. And you guys have done a very nice job, whether you knew it or not, of presenting prompts in a way that it makes it easy for me to understand how to communicate with Gilroy and subsequently go ahead and create my own prompts or alter the ones that are here. And that goes back to the capabilities conversation we have. You guys have great prompts, but not all of these prompts may apply to the situation that I'm in. But by formatting them in a way where they have components in it, like personas and outputs, that we can go step into and change, makes it even a more powerful tool than before. And what I'm talking about here is I'm going to click on this one. I've actually run this, but I want you to see that I literally can come into this caption that you've inserted. And one of the tricks I teach, because of the way you guys train and you train, the Gilroy's trained up to the minute, or I usually say within 24 hours because I don't want to put you on the minute, but I can come in here and do something like dell.com, and it will go reference dell.com, public domain information, stuff it's already been trained on. But because Gilroy works like most every other large language model on pattern recognition and context, it now knows, oh, I only want you to suggest products on dell.com. I could get further and further into it and go /cybersecurity, which is what I did for the example. And I'll kind of show you what Mr. Gilroy gave me. And so I basically did consider the pain points. You can see here, I typed in the full Dell.com. I knew where the security services were. That's what I was trying to get an idea on. And very quickly, it takes about 30 seconds or less for it to produce me a handful of really nice ideas that maps cybersecurity offerings from Dell to these pain point and SWOT. Now, what you're going to say is, Brian, this isn't probably good enough for me to go present to the customer. Sure enough, right? AI is going to get us 70 or 80% of the way. And then you go leverage your experience as a salesperson, your experience with the account, to go manipulate this into an actual sales strategy that you can go drive home and take on and kind of plan out for the next year or quarter or months, whatever works for your system. But what it does for me then is I teach people all the time, go back in and run this very same prompt, but pick the 2 or 3 other services that may be, in our scenario, complementary to this. And now I have a really nice base that when I meet with my team, we have sales teams we refer to as geopods. When I meet with my geopod, I'm able to sit down with this nice base of this information that's already been mapped to the SWOT and to the pain points. And it allows us to very quickly produce a much deeper, richer sales strategy, as well as get to more of them. When we were manually doing this, the feedback I was getting is they could go through 1 or 2, maybe every time they'd meet with their little geopod. And then now they can easily get through 5, 6, 7. And what did we say at the beginning? It's about touching more accounts and providing a higher value. And you can see right here, oh no,
Exactly. And Brian, there's so much information on that initial page of that company page. It allows you to go in, like you said, and do your own research with sales triggers, SWOT analysis. But then when it really comes down to it, time is everything. Time is money. So how do you really save time and money? It's going to be going through and it's going to be using Gilroy. And Usman, I'm sure this is a super cool moment for you as well, because Gilroy used to just be a customer success spot. And now he is a librarian of any publicly available information. And I want to point out that any publicly available information up to the date, not up to 2021 like others, up to the date, as well as up to all your most recent marketing collateral. So Gilroy has really improved himself and is really a power house of knowledge in today's sales world. Usman, how does that feel for you?
No, it's phenomenal, and I think that's exactly the core purpose. I have actually a couple of questions for you, Brian, if you're ready. I don't know if while you bring that up, I think what you showed us was how SWOT analysis, XIQ's created the SWOT analysis and made this happen. So is that something that, Dell requires salespeople to go out and gather? Is it already part of the method of gathering information before you hit your clients?
I would say required is probably a strong word. I think it's a best practice, and it's something
Best
that
practice.
we encourage and promote. Whether it's a SWOT analysis or some level of preparation around understanding the client. And before Gilroy, even, we were using XIQ, like I was mentioning, statically, where reps would go build out these strategies. But you still had plenty that did the old school, right? They would go to Google and pull up the news articles and go search and set up alerts for when things changed. And there's no need really to do that anymore because XI curates it so beautifully for them.
Yeah. And then you also showed us a little while ago that you queried Boeing to get some of the key cybersecurity pain points, right? And if, just kind of playing it back for the audience in terms of what was happening is when Brian put in the prompt about give me the top cybersecurity pain points, XIQ's AI chatbot Gilroy went in using a large language model, queried everything that's within the database related to Dell. And as Taylor was saying, it's up to date. And it went out, looked at news, looked at reports, looked at not just news published by Boeing, but news that has been published in the press, in industry journals, and was able to query and find out and calculate in less than 10, 15 seconds that these were the top cybersecurity points. Brian, you made a really, really interesting point over there. I'd just like you to maybe spend a couple of seconds on this in terms of, you mentioned that AI will get us to 80% and the last 20%. So I guess that should also address the fear a lot of people have, which is AI going to take my job, right?
I agree with you, Usman. I talk about it all the time because, as you can imagine, we get sales reps that ask that, like, man, I'm just afraid with all these abilities, what are they going to need me for? And I think it's a valid point, right? There's a lot of things that AI do way better than I can. But the reality is, when I start to think of it enhancing what I've learned over the last 20 years, my ability to infer information and read between the lines and pick up on tone and pick up on body language, that's not going to change. And I don't see AI getting as good as I am. I'll pat myself anytime soon on doing those things. So what I have to talk to my sales reps about and help them understand is, I think you're the one who coined the phrase, AI should be augmented intelligence, not artificial, right? It needs to augment my 30 years of experience and my intelligence around my customers and my intelligence around what I've tried before and hasn't worked. And so I often answer the question kind of coy, that yes, you should be afraid of it, but only if you're unwilling to leverage it. And I think that's the difference. Great salespeople are going to become superheroes when they start leveraging AI and specifically XIQ's platform. And if you're just going to remain being a great sales guy, I'm going to surpass you because I have the benefit of AI making me more efficient and providing me more value that I can go figure out how to manipulate that and provide that value to my customers.
And Brian, so we touched on really highlighting how you start your initial research, which is with that company. But every single sales rep knows company doesn't sign a deal, a person will sign your deal at the end of the day. It's going to be a name on that dotted line. So how do you go about really grabbing the attention and understanding who that individual is once you
Well,
kind of pass the company?
I think it goes back and make sure you can see my screen. I'm sorry, I'm having some
Yep.
technical Chrome issues. So can you see my screen again?
Yep. You're
Yes.
good.
Okay. So you're right? It comes down to I can build beautiful strategies, but until I know who to talk to and how to talk to them, I'm just building strategies. And that doesn't do me a whole lot of good. And so XIQ kind of helps us navigate that as well. I call it a personality CRM a lot of times, just out of casual conversation. And one of the beautiful things for me is the ability to create groups and then go leverage Gilroy to go understand those groups. Now, I've created a group over here for Boeing already. You'll see it pop up right here. I'll click on that in a minute. All you would have to do is hit create BRM, and it's going to create a group for you. But I'm going to go in here because you'll see very quickly, if I was new to this account, man, there's a lot of people, and this, I guarantee you, this isn't everybody of importance just showing up on my screen. But what this tells me very quickly, if I want to take the time, I can now go and dig in. But I'm not that guy. I like my AI, and I know Gilroy knows these people pretty well already. So what I did was I came in here, and you can see that I can leverage the pre-existing prompts around emails about the group. I'm going to share this one because I love some of these. You can do overarching emails. You can come in here and ask it questions around the doers, blockers, and coaches, and I'll explain those terms here in a minute. You can have it suggest conversation topics. So it's a really good way, if you're not into this account, to start developing some content that you may be able to leverage some way to get into the account. But what I wanted to do today was ask it, I don't know who to talk to about cybersecurity. And so I actually wrote I used your prompt, right? Who in this group would be best suited for a conversation on Dell? Same idea, copied and pasted in the publicly facing site. And very quickly, it pointed out Tony, who's their CIO, which makes sense, but I don't know if I want to start with Tony. So I come down here and I see Jennifer Mack. Okay, let me go find Jennifer. And we're going to start figuring out how do I go break down some doors and see if Jennifer can help me get my way to Tony. And so I'm going to click on Jennifer. I think this is one of the first things we tell people to start doing is just go get an idea of how Jennifer needs to consume information, because at the end of the day, that's our goal, is to present information in the best way possible so that Jennifer's not thrown off by my style, but she can actually see the value of the content that I'm bringing to her. And so I always tell people, come down here to sales alignment. This is step number one. And so you can see, because of the beautiful way you guys have done the DISC assessment for Jennifer, but also for me, we can have this connection, right? There's that machine learning and your neuroscience on the back end that says, hey, Brian, the way you like to do things is a medium connection with how Jennifer does things. Now, we mentioned earlier that one of the strategies we talk about, we have geopods, they get together and they talk about strategies and build out plans. This is becoming one of those things that they do. They each go in and look at Jennifer Mack and see how they connect with them. And so we've kind of been talking about, does it make sense that maybe I am the account executive and I'm going to lead a majority of the conversations, but I have a medium or low connection with Jennifer? I can come down here and spend some time learning about that. But I can also find that I have a person in my geopod that's a high connection with Jennifer. We may want to build some strategies around letting that person, whether they're the technical resource or the inside or whatever their role is, the fact that they have a more natural communication style with Jennifer, we may build a strategy for let them lead the first in-person meeting, or at least kick it off and maybe kind of set the room at ease and make sure we've got everything in the right place and moving along in the right direction. But maybe you don't work in an environment where you have access to other people on your team, or maybe you're just pig-headed like me and I like to do everything myself. So I want to scroll down because XIQ knows that about me. And it's going to tell me just some basic approaches to talk to Jennifer. And then it's going to give me some really in-depth understandings of behaviors, motivation, and stressors. I like this one a lot, especially if I'm not a good match with them. I tend to come here and look at these so I can set my presentations up to not stress them out in the beginning. As you can tell, I'm a flowery storytelling, anecdote, analogy guy. That doesn't work for everybody. So this allows me to come in here and understand I need to forego that when I speak with this individual, because they like formal, they don't want lengthy, which is me. And so I can go alter my presentation style so that it's not what bothers Jennifer and she can actually see the value of my presentation. And then over time, my quirkiness that may not match with her isn't that big of a deal. We've got a relationship. We've built trust. She understands my company provides value. And so I don't have to fake who I am forever. I can just leverage this information to help me get my foot in the door and get us off on the right track, whether it's through emailing, whether it's selling, whether it's understanding strengths and weaknesses. There's a lot here. But once again, maybe I don't want to do all that work because that's a lot. My buddy Gilroy, he's back at it. And you can see here, we have a whole series of prompts from emails to sales insights about this individual, about the person. It's going to scour that DISC assessment and help me understand maybe different ways to connect with this individual outside of work, hobbies, passions, work histories, roles they've had, things of that nature. Or even what I think is maybe the newest, correct me if I'm wrong, this LinkedIn interactions. This has become a big part of our social selling components, whether you're leveraging, maybe my focus is to get to Jennifer through LinkedIn instead of a direct contact because it's a slower roll. I'm not super hurried to get there. I may have Gilroy create me a few LinkedIn starters or posts specifically that would resonate with Jennifer. Or like I did, I went ahead up here and said, you know what? I want you to help me write a series of 3 emails. This is one of the existing prompts. So I didn't have to create this one. This was already here. All I did was, once again, I dropped in my security information, dell.com/whatever, and it wrote me 3 emails that does a really nice job of progressively introducing the topic of Dell security. But I wasn't really happy with maybe this 3rd call to action. And so I took it a step further and I was like, hey, could you provide me a call to action to setting the meeting that's a little more compelling and time bound? All right, now I'm getting a little creative with Gilroy, and he did a better job. All right. And then I asked him again, I wanted some opening lines and I wanted some introductions, and gave me a few more examples. And so I say this, especially for those that are afraid of using AI content, let Gilroy create you components that I can then go copy and paste and create my own email, my own LinkedIn, my own whatever. But I now have 3 really good samples of emails, some call to actions, and some openers that I can go take those and manipulate and use to go have my best approach for communicating with Jennifer. And so once I understand the people, now I can start building out deeper strategies that really allow me to kind of go deeper than just, here's my service, what do you think? Oh, by the way, I hope my style is good enough that it doesn't freak you out and you don't want to talk to me anymore. And that's why I lost the business. And so to me, this is great, whether you're a new rep, you're trying to learn about our services and how to go sell them to people, or if you're a seasoned rep and this is a new person with a style that doesn't match yours, and everywhere in between, there's something for our salespeople to go glean from these personality insights.
Yeah, and Brian, sorry to interject, but I think that is so 84% of B2B deals are lost because the buyer and the seller are not communicating in a manner that the buyer is able to comprehend what the seller is trying to say, or that it reflects that the seller has done enough research on them to be familiar with them to communicate in a manner that is appropriate and on the same wavelength as how they like to be communicated. 84%, that's a lot of leakage in the pipe. And that's just being lost after all those demand generation activities, just because you were too lengthy in how you speak to people, or you were too brief, or you were too impersonal. Just those little nuances can add up to, us losing deals because people just turn us off, right?
I couldn't agree more. And that's, to me, that's what we talked about. My experience of reading a room took years to develop, and not everybody has that ability. And goodness knows it doesn't help me with emails. It doesn't help me with LinkedIn posts. And so this just taps into what I think is a core ability of salespeople to resonate with the folks that they're speaking with. And you guys have done a very great job of making that accessible, regardless of what my skill set or my level is and what I am trying to go attack. But I will say something, Usman, we really only talked about this from a sales perspective externally. One of the really neat things that we have found that's helped a lot as you change accounts, or, in an organization like Dell, we have hardware selling teams and services selling teams and so on and so forth. And so within an account set, there may be a brand new hardware account executive that I don't know. And so I can leverage XIQ to go search for them as well, pull them up and start to understand how I communicate with them, what's my connection level with them, How is it best for me to resolve conflict, work with, so on and so forth. So it's not just how do I go work with external customers? How do I go better align myself with my internal customers so that we can make the best impact on our customers, our external customers? Now, one big ask though, maybe could I get you to add my wife in here so I can pull her up and figure out how to communicate with her, because that'd be huge. But that's another side note for another webinar.
And maybe we could do that for you, Brian. We could probably
There you
do
go.
that. I just want to double down on something that I think was really important. You said every good sales rep, like yourself, knows how to read a room. But what if we're no longer getting in those rooms, right? Again,
Right.
not meeting in person. There's going to be a younger generation of sales reps who have maybe never met or sold in person. And so it's going to be really important for them to get tools that they can utilize on their own time to train themselves how to read those body language, how to communicate with people, how to really get to how to sell their deal faster, essentially. And so XIQ is really created with the idea in mind of putting the person, the buyer and the seller, in the center of every single deal. And by being able to predict these personality types, like Jennifer, for example, is an investigator. She has that predicted DISC personality type. Gilroy can then look at that. That's also what makes us different from other large language models. It's not writing it for just person A or person B. It's writing it for person A as an investigator personality type. So instead of giving sales reps or SDRs ChatGPT, having them ask it a question and you get 100 of the same responses, which may not or may be good, we're really teaching them how to create themselves as a thought leader and really customize their messages, which will then lead to faster, more strategic partnerships and deals.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that kind of segues into another great feature you guys have that we're just beginning to leverage is the document hub that then allows me to create this type of content for different personality types, not even just for people, but for personality types that I can go leverage in a variety of ways, whether it be with through email or through creating presentations or call scripts or things of that nature. And so I was going to do that. I was going to jump over there. You're a great segue. Thank you. The document hub, right? This is one of the things we talk about at Dell when we talk AI is outside of XIQ, other tools, make sure we're not putting anything in there that isn't customer facing or isn't already in the public domain. There are plenty of stories out there of how a lot of the large language models store and share tokens and parts of information. Well, one of the things I think why companies like Dell was drawn to an XIQ is we understand that when we prompt, that's not happening. They're not being shared, they're not being stored. And then the document hub is a very safe and secure place that we can load customer facing documents and that our sales teams can have and leverage. And again, just another speed to market component of it sits right here. I know these are good documents. I know they're customer facing, and I can go build presentations or content off of it that's going to be very powerful for me with my customers. And one of the ones I shared is I was talking with I was prepping for the cybersecurity customer conversation, but I saw this Lifecycle Hub presentation. I was like, I wonder, that's a really good tie-in to talk about a more holistic approach than just security. And so I had Mr. Gilroy here. You notice I came over and clicked on Gilroy again. And I asked it to create a short voicemail call script using the Dell, and I just referenced that file. You can see the name there to there. And it gave me this short call script. And so now maybe I can use that when I'm reaching out to a lot of people to talk about Lifecycle Hub over and over and over again, rinse and repeat. But then it dawned on me, it's like, well, not everybody's going to have the same personality type. So I just altered it and said, now can you create 4 scripts, one for each major DISC personality type? So dominant, influential, steady, conscientious, right? And so now we can take this and I can manipulate each one of these into 4 different call scripts and leverage that strategy of I'm meeting with Jennifer Mack. I'm going to leave her a voicemail. She is in the C category. I'm going to come back over here and grab the one that started with a C, where we are down here. And that's going to be my base for my email for her, or voicemail for her, sorry. Now, just like I said, I could also turn this, copy, paste that. I refer to those typically as primers, paste that into Gilroy over here and go use this information to create a note specifically. Use this content. Sorry, I shouldn't be doing things live, but I got a wild hair.
No, we love it. And I want to point out while you type out your prompt that one thing you mentioned is making it kind of accessible and then scalable. And so this allows you to do it. And Brian, you're already kind of thinking outside of the box and using XIQs in ways that not only I haven't even used it in. So I am super excited about your passion and the way you've kind of looked at it and manipulated it to really work for you. You're not working with it, it's working for you now.
I say it all the time. Gilroy's become one of my best friends. We chit chat all the time. And so that's part of that strategy, Usman and Taylor, that it's bigger, is teaching capabilities then allows and provides a safe space like you guys have with XIQ for our reps to go play, because that's where the real power comes in. I'm not the smartest guy in most rooms, but I have the benefit of meeting with hundreds and hundreds of brilliant sales reps that are in the field with accounts every day. And so when I get to pick their brain and ask what they're doing and how they're using it, I can come back and then programize it for the rest of the masses. And I think that's the power of a tool like this. I can't go prescribe you to go write these sequences like I just did, because that may not work for your patch. That may not work for your account set. That may not work for your style. And so this allows us that mindset of go play with Gilroy and really see what you can get out of him. I told Usman, he told me a couple of weeks ago to put him to the test. I've been doing it. I've been seeing what I can get out of him. And quite honestly, I've not been upset whatsoever. And the reps that I talk to and the way they're using it, they're getting that same kind of response. So get creative, go play, see what Gilroy can and can't do.
That brings us to a very nice next section, I think, social selling. So while we were prepping, you also told us that you've been writing blogs, right? And social selling works. Tell us a little bit more about that. Sorry.
So I think in the age we're in today, between what Taylor was talking about is, the last couple of years, no customer interactions are very minimal. Starting to see a few more of those now. I mean, that's starting to get back. But how do I go touch more accounts without actually touching those accounts? And social selling is one of those unique avenues. And so one of the things we've been talking about internally and just started sharing with some of our teams was a method of developing op-eds or blogs or articles where you're a voice and you have an opinion on a topic in the market. And the benefit is when you just using LinkedIn to post articles, it doesn't matter about your connections with people on LinkedIn. It matters about SEO and hashtags. And Gilroy, like most AI bots, is fabulous at writing SEO and the appropriate hashtags to get the attention. Credence to that methodology, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today if those blogs hadn't been written. That's my first introduction with Usman. I was writing about XIQ and we started to have a conversation, and here we are. I've had 3 additional people reach out based off of those blogs to have me come speak at their meetings and what have you. And so I think it's a testament of, if you can write a blog that will resonate with your customer base, you don't know which one of those people are either currently one of your customers or married to one of your customers or will be one of your customers in the future. And you're already have an opinion and a voice, and you're becoming a trusted advisor in the market. That's the generic approach. You can then start leveraging Gilroy to write very targeted type blogs or posts for things like LinkedIn that are targeted towards a product and maybe a personality type. We haven't talked a lot about the strategy of buyer groups, but one of the things we talk about is setting up buyer groups for types of people. Maybe that type of person is someone I'm pitching cybersecurity to, and I'm trying to really get in the door on that. And I have a group of 15 account people that I'm focused on. I can leverage Gilroy to start writing LinkedIn content for those personality types and try to hit them from that angle, that they start seeing, hey, Brian's got this voice out in the market on this. It resonates with me. I remember him sending me an email a while back. I need to go back and look at that. So it's all interconnected. And so the other nice thing is, once you've created that content, I used Mr. Gilroy here to create me either a blog or a post. And I then take that, and just like you saw me do a minute ago, where I had that a call script turned into an email, I can do that very same thing because I really like how the blog turned out, and come in here and go, hey, take this information, primer, right? And write an email specifically to Jennifer Mack using that content. Or write an introduction to it, and I'm going to send the link in the email to the blog. And so there's these strategies that evolve that in an hour or so a week, I can create 2 or 3 blogs and 2 or 3 directed, focused pieces of material from that to the accounts that I'm really trying to sell. And so we're at the tip of that iceberg, Usman, and I'm excited to kind of start figuring it out as we share these strategies with our brilliant sales folks, and they come back and tell me what's working and what isn't working. I've seen great success with it just from around me talking about AI. We have a group that's talking about cybersecurity, with it being Cybersecurity Awareness this month. So I'm really excited to see what Gilroy and my team is able to kind of come back and tell me is the reception from this social selling.
Exactly. Brian, attention is, again, I mentioned it earlier, the new currency. People are no
Mhm.
longer looking for just sales reps. If you're just a sales rep, just pushing a product, just selling what's on the cart, it's not going to work. You need to be able to lift yourself up as a thought leader and really create that partnership, because the landscape is so complex now. There's so many different solutions. They're looking for people with the long-term view, not the short-term solution.
Well, and I think that resonates because we're all people. We are all consumers, right? Whether it's at a high level of buying services from Dell, or it's at, online looking on something on Amazon, right? We all want to be treated like humans. We want to be connected with, and I want to make sure what I'm buying has value. And I think XIQ levels that playing field, that I can do that quickly and efficiently with more accounts than I've ever been able to do before. I do want to say one thing about Gilroy. I say this a lot to our sales teams around AI in general. If you were to hire the smartest, most effective assistant in the world to be your personal assistant tomorrow, it would still take time for you to understand each other's communication styles. So what I don't want you to do is understand that Gilroy is amazing, but you may not always get a perfect response. And that's okay, because you have to learn how to communicate with him to regenerate or add another variable, or maybe you added too many variables, you got a little excited, maybe I need to go back to the base prompt. But treat it like an assistant. You would not hire an assistant and expect them to understand your inner workings from day one, nor will you theirs. Don't have that same expectation with AI. Play around, get comfortable with Gilroy. He's been, like I said, he's my great friend now. But I've had to learn how to communicate with him, and it was very easy relative to all the other AI tools that are out there. But you still have to go through that to get the most out of them. And I think that we talked about it as well. Good, better, best, right? Using AI is good. Using XIQ is better. And using Gilroy and learning how to communicate with him where you can alter some of his prompts is the best. And so now you're a superpower sales guy, because you didn't just use AI, you leveraged Gilroy to kind of take it to that next level.
And
Sorry, I
Brian,
get all rambly and passionate, Taylor. I told you that's going to happen.
no, that's good. That's what we love. And putting that, I'm just going to reiterate that. Using AI is good. Using Gilroy is better. And then using trained sales reps with Gilroy is best. And so training those sales reps can be a pain point. Adoption can be a pain point for every single company. We've seen and we hear all the time, people are like, we've invested in these things. Not everyone's using it. 5 of my sales reps have this solution. 5 have this solution. So Usman, I want to turn this question on you. How does XIQ support the adoption and strategy behind the sales reps using it? How do we really support them? What does that look like?
Yeah, so a couple of great questions. A big concern, especially at the C level, has been privacy and the information being lost in the public domain and teaching large language models. But I like what Michael Dell, Brian, said, which is that we should all be trying out these tools. When we moved from the horse carriage to the cart, we did not go back to the horse carriage. We moved on. So technology is evolutionary. And when we moved on to the internet, we didn't go back to looking up encyclopedias. We started using Google. Now we're in the age of AI. So adoption is necessary. And I go back to what you said, that it's the sales reps that are using this tool and are channeling the power of AI to help themselves, because there's so many data points today in the sales process, about people, about the company, about the multiple decision makers that you have to convince. So there's too many data points for humans to be able to consume it. Regarding adoption, the big question has been around privacy. One of the things that XIQ has done, as you mentioned, regarding the document hub, and what we have done in using the ChatGPT large language model, we're using a private API. Everything that happens within this environment, first of all, remains for each of our clients. So Dell has their own environment. Other companies will have their own unique environment. Nothing is shared between those two. Secondly, any prompts that are put out there are done so that they are going in an anonymous fashion. None of that says Brian Picard wrote this about Taylor Carden, and then we reviewed this, and Brian was from Dell. None of that information is going. Third, regarding the training of large language models, we are not doing that because our goal is something entirely different in terms of using these large language models to query the corpora or the multiple databases that we have created and are constantly getting updated. So adoption is taking place. I'd like to take that question to Brian also and see what is, he's in the forefront of driving adoption at the C level. It's kind of interesting, Brian and Taylor, that in November, nobody even knew what ChatGPT or the role of AI was. And suddenly it's a C-level boardroom buzzword. Everybody's talking about it. So Brian, maybe you can also shed some light in terms of what is your experience with sales reps and sales teams in adoption of AI? Was there a resistance in our?
I think it's three main buckets, Usman. We have our early adopters. They're the people like me. They're the doers, right? They're excited about it. They want to go play. They want to go get in it. And they're the team that helps me kind of make this a reality for the rest. And then you have on the other end of the spectrum, you have those blockers, those folks that they don't trust it. They don't want to use it. It's scary. It's going to take my job. It's going to, take over the world. And then you've got that middle group, the folks that are like, I get it, but I don't know, and I'm not sure. And so those first two, I spent a lot of time with the doers and the coaches of really harnessing capabilities and letting them go play. And then I've tried to invest a lot of time on my known doers or my blockers around letting them see what is accessible to them. And so one of the wins we had was the handful of folks that didn't really want to start putting out emails or putting out blogs or things of that nature that AI wrote, was just starting to leverage the curation of information within XIQ. And so I think adoption is personal. We're not forcing it with anybody at this point in time that I'm aware of, not in our group anyway. We're really just asking them to start playing around and find those efficiencies within their day. And I think that's the right approach because we have fewer and fewer blockers as they start playing around and get comfortable with it, instead of me prescribing, go use it this way. I said it earlier, and I'm going to continue to say it. AI is very personal. And I think we have to adopt that as a corporate strategy to understand that not everybody is going to be on board right away. And we have to take those steps. Roles like mine, where I have the benefit of being a longtime sales guy and a longtime leader, I can go sit with a lot of reps. Not every company has those people in place. And I think Dell is smart, maybe because that's my paycheck, to have people like me I don't have a quota. I can go invest the time to go help people figure out how to use these tools to do their jobs more efficiently and effectively. But it's that bottom group that you have to go take a hands-on, one-on-one approach with each one of them, because it is personal, and it's personal for a different reason. They're afraid or they're weary for different reasons. If you don't do that and you just start throwing more content out there, I have found we just push those people away. So that one-on-one, very small group kind of reaction to the blockers is the best approach. The other two, just give them capabilities. They tend to go take care of themselves. Matter of fact, they come back and wow me. Just kind of like I wowed Taylor, I have people wowing me every day that I get to go and then turn those into really cool programs that I can teach to the masses. So.
And I think we have a question in the chat just about compliance and about kind of the security behind all of XIQ. And Usman or Brian, either of you feel free to.
I'll let Usman take it first since we're specifically talking XIQ.
Yeah, it's actually directed towards you. How do you ensure the content and from used for primers is compliance approved? So great question. So two things. First of all, when you're uploading content into the XIQ's document hub, we recommend that it's done by people who are using approved documentation. All other content that we will be querying, not your company's marketing and sales assets, but everything else is from the public domain. But what you're going to be uploading, as Brian was showing that you can query it and write blogs and write LinkedIn posts, that should be compliance approved. It should be coming in. We can do a number of ways. We can set the users who can upload content. We can give only permission to those people who are allowed to upload content, and then that happens. And also, there should be guardrails, just like there are guardrails in around social media posts, that you should not post your company private material on social media. There's similar guardrails around posting on AI as well. But and lastly, we have a secure database. It's not going out into the public domain. Brian, anything?
That's the key point for you. So as a prompt engineer, I use a lot of other tools as well. But I tend to come back to XIQ as the general one and the most important one for our reps because of that. Since you don't capture the prompts or share that information, it's the safest place to go. And Gilroy is just amazing. So you might as well use Gilroy to go do that work. Primers are typically information that I'm pulling from customer-facing documents that are already approved. It's just like a subset of that. Or I used one of those documents to have Gilroy create me a call script. That is still, that I use that as a primer now, since it came from a customer-facing document and only information it could find or be trained on in the public domain, we tend to consider that safe. I say this all the time, inspect what you expect out of AI. Don't just copy and paste. Make sure you go read through and it didn't give either anything that's a false set of information or it didn't change something that would look like or you wouldn't want to put out into that public sector. So you still have to do a little work. And that's why I said that 70 to 80% mark is the goal. If I can get AI to do 70 to 80%, I can still take home the rest and be much more effective and efficient than I was. Be super careful. We start every one of our presentations around AI with a slide of what you can and can't put in there from a Dell policy perspective. For other companies out there, if you don't have that already, you need to, because I think sales reps have that question first and foremost. What can I put in? What can I put in? And so we've just developed that, and it's the lead off slide for every one of our conversations.
And Brian, how long with getting into XIQ, I know you've been a power user for a while, but how long would you say it actually took you to be really conversational with Gilroy and learn how to use it?
So XIQ and Gilroy, I've been playing around with XIQ for about a year and a half. We incorporated it into one of our data analytic tools, which I was responsible for teaching people to use. And so it inherently became part of my day. And so we were using it more of at the SWOT level that's already curated. We would go do something with it. It was pre-Gilroy. So I had a decent, or pre-us using Gilroy. I mean, you may have had Gilroy. We just weren't using him really. And that was all the way up until somewhere in July or August is my first real experience of playing around with Gilroy. And my first one or two attempts was like, I can do that in ChatGPT. Who cares? And then I started to go play around with some of those other preformed prompts. And I was like, ooh, they've written some cool prompts. What can Brian do with these? And so it didn't take me long. I bet in a matter of 72 hours of playing around with Gilroy, I was hook, line, and sinker. And it's just expanded from there. Just like my analogy with an assistant, it doesn't take months and months to figure out how your assistant communicates. It takes 1 or 2 meetings, maybe 3 or 4 meetings if it's really complex. Gilroy's the same way. If you will literally invest 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of time in XIQ and playing around with the different pages we showed, the account level, the people level, the document level with Gilroy, you'll become an expert faster than you can imagine. And you'll probably be able to teach me some things very quickly.
And Gilroy doesn't get tired. Gilroy is available 24/7. If Gilroy is available for you on your flight, when you log in, you can simply start asking questions. So you have that assistant working for you tirelessly and not demanding pay or 24/7. That's another beautiful aspect of it.
Hasn't asked for a vacation or a raise, none of that. It really is. It's a great tool. And I don't say that because you guys pay me. I don't work for you guys. As a prompt engineer and as a guy who has made a career the last 4 years out of training professional sales reps, your tool is just good. At the end of the day, it's what salespeople need at every level. And Dell is taking advantage of that. And we know as we try to do more and more accounts and more touches, XIQ provides that efficiency and it helps us provide more value, that deeper, richer conversation, instead of me having to go do it all myself and aggregate all the information and go through how many of our sales reps aren't even analytical enough to develop a SWOT? Probably a lot of them aren't. That's a kind of a dying skill set that is hard to do. Most salespeople don't have that strong of an analytical background. And so you guys leverage that, you've leveled the playing field for many, many salespeople.
Exactly. It's really about the democratization of those insights and those
Mhm.
insights with speed and with the personality included as well. Because even if you have what you're going to say, you need to know how to say it and when to say it. So
I
XIQ
think
has really closed off those bases.
I hadn't said this before, but I think this is an important thing to say, and this will be my one and only Dell plug. One of the reasons I love this company is not only are we a major player in the space around AI, of getting companies to use AI from a hardware perspective and the digital humans and all those things. I love that we're using it and we are doing what we preach, right? We're training salespeople to use AI to leverage that information, because we're out there in the market selling it to companies to set up bots and chat environments and things in that nature, and everything included. And so I love working for a company that stands behind not just what they sell, but they actually institute it and implement it within their own sales teams. And that to me is the true test of it. It shows that they not only are, there's money to be made in it, they see the value in it as well. And XIQ is just part of that, the big part of that strategy, especially in our services sales organization.
And Brian, I want to thank you so much for your openness and your passion behind AI. I use XIQ all the time, and I've learned things from you in today's session, and I'm sure I will continue to learn things as we move forward. So as we spoke about today, AI is not the passing fad. It's really here to stay. And our hope is that you leave this webinar feeling inspired to be a part of the conversation like Brian has. Technology, like Usman said, has a tendency to advance and then never go back. Think about the horse and carriages to cars, to flip phones, to smartphones. We've moved forward and haven't taken those steps back. So we really invite you, like Brian has, to be an early adopter, to embrace the change and be a part of this journey with XIQ. And really, again, get to know Gilroy and get to know what he can do for you to make your life easier. So
Well, thank you, Taylor.
Thank you, Brian. And I'm sure we'll have many conversations after this. This
I hope
webinar
so.
has been recorded, so we'll pass it on to anyone who maybe had to jump early. You can, of course, get it in your email. I want to also ask people to book a demo if they want to have another conversation. If they want to speak to Brian, we can connect them with him. Otherwise, we put a link in the chat to book a demo with either myself, Usman, any of the other people on our team. And so again, Usman, thank you for having us. Brian,
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And thank you, Taylor, for being such a great host and carrying such a great conversation forward. Thank you so much for that as well.
Great job.